the GIMI think tank. GIMI think tank is a weekly virtual forum composed of GIMI ambassadors, GIMI partners, and other experts who share knowledge around innovation and promote collaboration. The participants are innovation leaders from industry, government, academia in different countries in 6 continents, around 25 countries who they represent. As you know, weekly, the purpose of this forum is, first of all, to share valuable and cutting-edge knowledge from distinguished speakers among the community and to the interested audience. Second is create awareness around innovation and GIMI framework and create a fluid, agile, and solid community of innovators around the world who assist in solving big and bold challenges. As you know, we share topics which fall under 4 categories: trends, innovation, state of innovation in countries, and anything around GIMI innovation, GIMI intellectual property and progress that we are doing around the world. We have shared topics around fintech, to food innovation, to startups, design thinking, innovation ecosystems, smart agriculture, innovation in health and future of education. All what we believe are hot discussions right now around the world, and we are trying to set a stone in these fundamental discussions around innovation. So I'm really happy today and honored to have with me Mr. Hassan Al-Ibrahim, who is the Executive Director of Government Development and Civil Service and Government Development Bureau in Qatar. I had the honor to meet Hassan as well. We started a partnership with Global Innovation Management Institute and this very important institution in Qatar, but also Sia Partners, who is our partner in the Middle East. And we did a service mapping of 4 processes, important processes like birth, divorce, marriage, and death in Qatar. And we identified the main pain points, and all these pain points, basically, we brought in a hackathon, which we conducted together with Sia Partners, and definitely around 100 public officials came up with breakthrough ideas how to solve these pain points around customer experience, but also service provider experience, and how to make these services seamless, integrated, and more efficiently for the customers. So Hassan today will talk about this unified customer experience, what Qatar is doing and spearheading in this field. We know that Estonia, Singapore are spearheading when it comes to unified customer experience and integrated services, digitally in particular. But Qatar is not behind. In fact, they are working a lot in a program which was launched called Sharet, a program about which Hassan is going to speak more about that. As part of his role, he is spearheading initiatives to modernize these government services and is focusing on improving the customer experience with the government services, but also fostering the innovation culture within the government sector. However, Hassan has played a key role also in other institutions in Qatar, like Qatar Tourism Authority. In this basically institution, during his tenure as a chairman, he executed the Qatar National Tourism Strategy 2030, while the main successes were the establishment of the Qatar Tourism Council, but also 3 other commercial entities. He is an active board member of several foundations, educational institutions, and around his academic achievements, he possesses undergrad in computer engineering, a Master of Science in Project Management, an EMBA from HEC Paris, and he's currently pursuing his PhD studies on business administration from the Warwick Business School. So taking into consideration the rich experience and expertise, I believe we'll have a treat today from Hassan. So Hassan, welcome to this think tank. I'm going to stop sharing the screen and spotlighting you right now.
Thank you very much, Erin.
The floor is yours.
Let me share my screen as well. So thank you very much for having me, Erla, and I'd like to thank Jimmy and their partners for hosting this session, as well as the partnership, the successful partnership that we've had in Qatar during the first quarter of this year. So before we delve into that partnership and the hackathon that we've done together, it's good to give the audience some sort of context of where the government services are in Qatar today, and why we've ventured into a partnership with Jimmy and their partners to bring about innovation to the government services. So before we start, it's good to understand more about the government services in Qatar. I mean, as you mentioned, Qatar had been very successful in the past 2 decades to establish e-services and to digitize a lot of services that had been offered or had been given to the citizens and residents and visitors of Qatar. And they were pioneering when it comes to e-services. However, when we first started with the government development division within CGB, or within the Civil Services and Government Development Bureau, we thought, all right, it's a great opportunity for us to assess the previous period, to identify why things were successful and how to do things better. And we thought about, let's define a clear mandate, and let's define our North Star, and let's define the ecosystem of services in general, government services. And based on that, once we have a clear roadmap, once we have a clear standards, we can innovate. Because you can't innovate when you don't know what your mandate is. You cannot innovate when you don't have a clear scope, because innovation in the absence of standardization will be a total mess. So we set our North Star for the government services, and we designed our government service to be citizen-centric. And this is why the main theme of everything that we do is based on citizen centricity. And this is why the unified citizen experience and the unified citizen profile is at the heart of our government services strategy. With that being said, our North Star and what we're trying to achieve as the government of Qatar is to have a one intelligent and AI-enabled government dedicated to serving beneficiaries at every step of their life journey. And you can see some of the components of that strategy and what are the main elements of that strategy that we're trying to use as an enabler for such a strategy. Again, when we're talking about the government services in general, there is an ecosystem for the government services. So yes, the North Star is very clear. We know where we're heading, because if we don't know where we're heading, anywhere will get us there. With that being said, it's very important for you, if you wanted to achieve a unified citizen experience and to have an amazing and seamless experience, you would need to have governance and enforcement at the heart of it. So how can you bring about the change to over 30 or 40 entities that are providing services to the citizens and residents and the visitors of the state of Qatar? And then within the ecosystem itself, we've worked with our partners to define the components of such an ecosystem. So what are the services that we're having in the state of Qatar today? And you can see some of these components in the slide that I'm sharing with you. It's let's look at the service catalog. Is it designed with the citizens and the users at the heart of it? Do they understand our service catalog? Do they understand what we're offering as a government? How can we prioritize these services, and based on what? And this is where a platform like Shark is helping us with not just defining the services that we have, but also prioritize the services that we have based on a triage exercise that we do using Shark. The same thing applies to the improvement and innovation. What are the services that you would need to improve and innovate? And how can you make it citizen-centric? And how can you empathize with the citizens? Today, you're dealing with citizens across multiple channels, and it's very hard to understand your customer because you have different segments that use your government services. As I mentioned before, no innovation without standardization. And this is why we focus so much on developing our standards as well. What do I mean by our standards? We're talking about the services standards, the experience standards, or the user experience standards, as well as the technical standards. And these are standards that we did not develop ourselves. or developed of the entities in Qatar, because there are multiple central planning entities that have different mandates. So for example, you have the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology in Qatar. They have their standards when it comes to e-services, when it comes to the digital presence, when it comes to mobile applications. So we've aggregated as much standards as possible. We've simplified these standards, and these are the standards that we will share with all the public entities to have the same language and to have the same understanding of the quality of service that we will be providing to the users of the services in Qatar. When it comes to the delivery model, so what is the role of the government versus what is the role of the private sector? Can you privatize some of these services? How centralized you need these services are? And this is one thing that we've studied as well. And this is one of the things that we're exploring. And we're exploring possible partnerships with the private sector. The same thing applies to the channels. It's no longer accepted that you receive government services through a single channel. You should not just go to a call center. You should not go to a service center. All of the services that the government is offering to the users, to the citizens and residents and visitors should be following an omni-channel approach. You're dealing with millions and millions of users, so you should cater to the channel that they feel more comfortable using. And this is why your services should be channel agnostic. And the same thing applies to the enablers part of the framework itself. So how can you build a system without the people? How can you make sure that you're not going through this journey alone? How can you have enough people that have enough expertise, have the same wavelength when it comes to how you're dealing with these services? The infrastructure is definitely something that goes without a say, and the same thing applies to the processes. And this is where we played a good role in collaboration with GIMI to start tackling the issue of processes. So as you can see in this slide, these are some of the initiatives that we have put and we've designed. And these are some of the initiatives that we will be delivering for the various elements within that framework. I won't delve and I won't speak too much about these initiatives, but these are some of the examples that we have for each layer and each component within the ecosystem. As you can see, the North Star is not just some hot air that we're talking about. The North Star is defined based on specific KPIs, based on assessing the current status of where we are and based on the baseline that on where we are today. And we're using Shark to define the baseline and to define the improvement and enhancement that we have across three verticals. One is relevant to the seamless and simplicity of the beneficiary experience. The other is around the service delivery, integration, and excellence. And finally, innovation and continuous improvement. And we have clear KPIs for each vertical that we have for this aspiration North Star that we have. Again, if we delve into the details, we can see the clear targets that we have. So innovation is not just, as I mentioned, it's not just some hot air. It's not about people with entrepreneurial spirit that would like to bring innovation to the government without having some and structure. Again, we've used good references. I mean, you've mentioned some of the examples of great governments that were able to innovate. So Estonia, Singapore, and other governments, they were to us the entities that we've used as an example for the strategy. And we were very happy to learn from these examples and try and learn and benefit from the projects that they have and the experience that they have as well. Then if we delve more into what we mentioned earlier about our partnership with GIMI, we focus so much on the life journeys and the important journeys that we have for the users in Qatar and the different beneficiaries of our services in Qatar. Sorry, can you see my screen?
Yes.
We do, but we don't see the full screen right now.
واضحة.
Perfect. So again, before we delve into these journeys, this is an example of how we're assessing the services. So we've defined the beneficiary centric commitments in line with our vision. So we've put 5 main commitments from our side on what we're trying to achieve. So we're trying to achieve through our government service strategy a single platform across all touch points, and we're working with the relevant providers of these services, whether it's the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology through their platform, which provides services to the beneficiaries. And they have a great tool, which, a platform that is called Hukumi. So they're working on re-engineering and redesigning Hukumi to become a single platform to provide services to the citizens. The same thing applies with the Ministry of Commerce and Qatar and Industries. They're working on redesigning the platform that they have, the single window, to become a platform that covers all the touch points. And they are trying to re-engineer the processes to align with the expectation of the users. And finally, we're also collaborating and working with a platform that is called Hayya, and that is dedicated for the visitors of the state of Qatar, and it had been used before during the World Cup period. There's also the one-time policy for information requests within and across ministries and entities and community. We're trying to avoid disrupting the experience of the seekers of services by requiring information, requiring documents which are already within the government ownership. So you should not ask someone for their national ID. You should not ask them for a birth certificate. You should not ask them for a piece of information which you have right now. This should go without a saying that you as a government, you already have this piece of information, and you should not bother the requester of the service with such a request. As we mentioned, the availability of the service across all channels is something that we also are encouraging all entities when they redesign the journey of the users to focus on. Only necessary touch points. You should not bother the users and the beneficiaries of the services, the government services, by asking them to stop in multiple touch points that they don't need to stop, and provide information or inquire about information or try to track as much as possible. And we try as much as possible to give the consultation before we reject. You should not just answer any request with a reject. As much as possible, there should be some sort of validation, and there should be some sort of explanation before someone asks for a service, that this service will be rejected or not, it will be accepted or not, what are the requirements. So these are the 5 commitments that we have and we've set for ourselves as a government services strategy, and this is what we need to communicate with the various entities in Qatar to ensure that they're providing a quality service to their citizens and residents and customers. Again, when we are assessing each service, we're looking into 6 touch points. So before you apply for a service, the discovery and the wayfinding should be seamless and very simple and very straightforward. The initiation and fulfillment of requirements should be simple. And when we assess any service, we look at these 6 points that I'm explaining. The tracking of service and requests should be also very simple and straightforward. The approval and payment, we have noticed that multiple entities around the world, they have an issue of approvals and payments, and they're not catering to different payment gateways or cards or systems. So when you design a service, you need to ensure that this is taken into consideration. The delivery and completion of service should be also pretty much simple. And the feedback, you should always have feedback from your customers, because you won't be able to enhance your services without the feedback from your customer. These are the journeys that we designed for each persona. So for the citizen and residents, for the businesses, and for the tourists. And these journeys that we've designed, we did not come up with this framework out of nowhere, but we've done a proper benchmark, and we've seen the taxonomy that is used by the EU for public services. We've looked at the services in the US and multiple states and service providers within the US. We've looked at the services within Canada and Singapore, and we've designed 25 journeys that would be a priority for us as a government. So again, going back to the concept of unified citizen experience, what do we mean by the unified citizen experience? Yeah, we've heard a lot about the unified customer experiences, and great governments, great companies around the world, they are providing seamless experience when it comes to their customers. So when you get in touch with any great company around the world, whether you email them, whether you're using their website, whether you're calling the call center, they know who they're talking to. And they were able to achieve a unified citizen experience or a unified customer experience. So take that concept from the private sector and try to bring it to public administration and to the government. And this is what we're trying to achieve. If you look today at, let's use CGB as an example, or the Civil Services and the Government Development Bureau as an example, we have multiple touch points with the citizens of the state of Qatar. So we're communicating with them through Mawarid, which is it's an ERP system that we have, and it also has over 80,000 users. We're communicating with the new job seekers through another platform called Kawadir. We're communicating with the civil servants through another channel, which is Hassan, which is responsible for the housing in the state of Qatar. We're communicating with them now through Sharik as well. So each program by itself has multiple channels, multiple social media accounts, a call center, emails, and all of that. And then each user has his own profile within each system that you have. So what we're trying to do, we're trying to come up with a layer that unifies all of that. So you would have a single profile, and with having a single profile, you will be able to provide a single experience for the user. Definitely with the amount of data you have, with the amount of channels you have, it's impossible for you to achieve such a thing. And this is why we're using artificial intelligence to first create a unified profile for each citizen, to look into the cases they have, to look into the multiple channels they have, and to integrate with the various channels which I mentioned, and then provide a unified experience to that user. And you will also understand and have a sentiment for each user that you have today. So you'll be able to say, for example, Ahmed is a user, he has issues with Kawadir, he has an issue with Mawarid, and he has issue with something else. And I know why he's not happy with the services that we're providing as an entity. So we're not just building that based on information that we own and information that we have in our systems, but we're also trying to aggregate as much information as possible that is available in the public domain. So we're also gathering and aggregating information from the app stores on all the government applications, mobile applications that we have from Apple Store and Android Store. We're aggregating information from Google locations. So we're looking at the buildings that we offer services in, and we're getting all the information from Google. We're getting information on the reviews and the ratings. And we're also getting the information from the social media platforms that we have. And we're onboarding entities to use their social media through Sharik. And that allows us to also monitor the SLAs and the response rate and the resolution rate. So by having these multiple channels that I've mentioned, and even much more than the ones that I've mentioned, you will be able to provide a unified experience, and you will use AI to help you to provide such an experience. So innovation in Qatar, again, needless to say, Qatar had been pioneering in innovation. It's been investing heavily in education in general. We've established Qatar Science and Technology Park, and innovation had been a main driver for all the achievements that Qatar had been successfully by focusing so much on innovation and investing so much in innovation in education. With that being said, we've also established a framework, a national framework, where we've added the innovation mandate for each public entity in Qatar and the new org structure. So there is a specific department now within each entity, and it is responsible for hopefully enhancing the culture of innovation within entities themselves. And then on a central level, level, on a government scale, we at CGB, we're trying to bring about an innovation framework to help us empower the entities and enable the entities to become more innovative in the way they design their services. And hence, we've collaborated with GIMI and IXL to work on the hackathon. So the hackathon basically that we've done, it's been a prototype of how we would like entities to innovate when it comes to services. And this is why we've worked very closely with multiple entities on designing this government hackathon, the first hackathon that we've done. We started initially with 5 life journeys or life moments that are relevant to any citizen, any resident, any visitor, any person that is using government services in general. And these services are, or these journeys are birth. So each one of us went through this experience, either as a human being or as a father, or even, you know, a friend who got a baby, you know, someone who got a baby. So you can empathize with such a journey. And this is why we chose this to be a journey that we use as a prototype. There's also the journey of marriage, the journey of divorce, and the journey of death. And again, each of these journeys, definitely you know something about the services that the government provide, because you either have gone through such a journey or you know someone who had gone through such a journey. To start the first step, we've done our own analysis in collaboration with GIMI and IXL, and we've done our research. We've looked at the data that we have. We mapped the services that we have right now. And then we've invited the multiple public entities and multiple government agencies to help us in the service mapping exercise to identify the services that we would focus on. And then once we were done with the service mapping, we decided together to engage with as many entities as possible. Earlier you were there, and we had multiple partners from GIMI and Sia Partners and IXL Center who were there, and you've seen the level of engagement we had from the public entities. It was a great exercise because it provided the public entities with the opportunity to focus beyond what they need to achieve as an entity by themselves. They realized today that you can no longer provide a service in silo, and you can no longer provide a service without collaborating with another entity. It also re-emphasized on the necessity of integration, collaboration, and thinking about the journey and not just the service. And if you go back to the 5 points which I've mentioned as a commitment for any government services, these were the ethos that we've used in that exercise. And we were trying to communicate indirectly about why it's important to provide services through omni-channel, why it's important not to ask someone for something that you already have as a government, why you should not have multiple touch points when they're not needed, why you need to do it in a much smoother way, and why you should advise before you reject. Again, these are some of the numbers which I already talked about. So we went through 2 workshops. We had over 60 participants. We had amazing 3 days that we've engaged with as many entities as possible, great minds. You can see in the background, this is one of the outcomes of the hackathon that we have. It's not clear, but it's we had a great illustrator come from to illustrate what we've done. And as I mentioned, the total number of services that we looked at were 10 services. And we had, again, some prototypes. So we've done prototyping. The beauty about this exercise itself, we've handed over the findings of the exercise to the Ministry of Communication and Information Technology, and they're using it as one of the inputs now for the first life journey, which is the birth journey. Again, I mean, I've talked enough about these 3 days of the hackathon, and I personally enjoyed noticing the entrepreneurial mindset that was there, and it's you know, for us who come from the private sector or who come from the commercial sector, it's after working for a while in the government sector, you miss this entrepreneurial thinking and this innovative thinking and working collaboratively in such an approach. So went through this as well, and in general, these are the outcomes and the impact of the hackathon. And we try as much as possible for this, not just to be a prototype, but to be a way of thinking and a way of working moving forward. With that being said, I guess I've reached the end of my lengthy, and I apologize for prolonging this session. But this is how where the hackathon played a main component into the implementation of our government services strategy. And again, I would like to wrap it up with thanking both GIMI and their partners for making this a great showcase of how innovation can play a more active role for government entities in the state of Qatar.
Thank you, Hassan. Thank you very much. You can stop sharing the screen maybe right now so we can see all talking heads. It was a pleasure for us as GIMI and Sia Partners, I believe, on behalf of them. And I believe we have here Carlos, Maria, Cesar, who might talk and ask questions. But it was a pleasure having this first prototype with Qatar, which I believe is the first one among many others to proceed. So I see that we have one question in the chat. I believe that others are having questions right now, but let me break the ice and maybe start a conversation. I think that we see sometimes from the experience of other countries doing the same as you have been doing with Sharek, right? To find hurdles or bottleneck to make this real, because not all the agencies, not all the ministries will be collaborative, right? Some might feel they will become not indispensable. Some might feel that they are losing the control. So how is the government creating this seamless integration among these government departments and agencies by aligning all the stakeholders, but also balancing out their interests and their agendas as well? I believe this is a tough responsibility. So really interesting.
See, Erla, one of the reasons why projects fail in general is when you start thinking big and acting big, and you start thinking about the grand picture of how to develop things, and you end up losing the focus on the details. So the approach that we've used for Sharek, I mean, again, the government development division within CGB is pretty much a new division. And our team is a young team when you compare it to the age of the government in general. I mean, we're almost 6 months old or 7 months old as a team. So what we decided to do basically is to focus so much on the mentality of thinking big, but acting, being very agile, prototyping, ensuring that you're designing based on the needs of your customers. And who are the customers for Sharek? We're not just talking about the citizens. Yes, citizens are one of the first beneficiaries or segments that we're focusing on, but we have other customers that we're catering to. So the agent that is sitting on a desk in the government services center, the agent that is sitting in the call center, the user of the social media platforms who are moderating and responding and so on. We made sure that we design a product that is usable by them, and we focus so much on their experience as well. So the focus is not just on the unified citizen experience, but it's on the total experience. So we decided to design a product that fits their need. We decided also to design a product that fits the other segments. So even for a director level or a decision maker level, we made sure that the platform will have enough empathy, and it will be designed for them to make decisions instantly. So they don't need to get a consultant or hire a consultant to help them and do a full study to understand what kind of decisions they need to make today. But if they go through the display that we have or the dashboard that we provided for decision makers, they're able to feel the points instantly because they have live information and live data about the experience of the customer. And they'll be able to make decisions in a more instant way, or in a more faster way, or in a faster way. So this is how we've designed the product. And we started with, as I mentioned, we prototyped, and then we scaled up. We prototyped, we scaled up. I'll give you an example or two about prototyping. So we have the government services, the government service centers that report to CGB. We used to have 10 of these government service centers. We decided to integrate with the queuing management system. And we did integrate with the queuing management system. So we were able to get all the information about the waiting time, the resolution time, how long it takes. And we were able to understand what are the issues that one center was facing with the level of service that we're providing to the public. And then we've scaled it up and it covered all of the service centers that we have. And in terms of adoption, we have 100% adoption rate. So all the agents on the desks are using the systems. All the supervisors and directors are using the platform today to monitor and evaluate the agents on the desk. And now we started also the practice of rewarding the users of the system. So each week, each month, we're assessing the performance of the agents because we can get through Sharik their KPIs. They achieve the KPIs. We have beautiful rating for some of our agents that we collected from the users and from citizens and so on. And now it's not just about, oh, I'm monitoring you. I'm not the big brother who's seeing everything you do, but it's a tool of rewarding you if you're a hard worker. So with the same kind of mindset, when you prototype on a call center level, social media level, it's helping us with designing a product and enhancing product based on the feedback that we receive from the various users of the system itself.
That's super impressive, Hassan. Thank you for responding to my question. I see the first in my screen is Salman. Salman, please, you can open the mic. Please, if you can mention the institution you represent, the country, and then the question.
Yeah, sure. Assalamu alaikum, Hassan. My name is Salman. I'm calling from the City of London. I've got 10 years experience in local government and I'm currently working for the City of London's government corporation. I've been like, I've got experience of kind of doing digital rollouts before. I was just quite interested to see and find out in terms of the digital divide. I can see, mashallah, the project in hand looks amazing, especially the integration of AI. It's something that we were actually considering in a region in London about 5 years ago. And then it potentially didn't roll out that far because of the digital divide. So I was just wondering, in terms of tackling, say, users who may not always have access to the internet, what measures are being taken place by Sharik or yourselves to kind of limit that digital divide? It would be interesting to know that.
Sure. Thank you very much for the great question, Salman. As I mentioned, again, the way we're designing Sharik is to become an omni-channel approach. So we're not focusing on a single channel, and this is helping a lot with the digital divide. As you mentioned, some of the users will not use your e-services and will not go to your social media. They'll prefer to go to a service center and get a manual service, or they would they would call the call center and prefer to deal with the call center. So instead of fighting this behavior, it's good to have a bridge between services that are provided on an analog approach or on a manual approach and out of the system approach, and try to create and curate some sort of a solution that will be able to get the KPIs and numbers that you have and use them to better design a service for them. Honestly, it's not about digital literacy as well. I mean, again, the internet penetration in Qatar is very high, and the majority of people, I mean, they use, if not on mobile, they have an access to the internet and they have an access to any digital platform very easily. But we know lots of people who, I mean, lots of decision makers do not prefer, or businessmen, they don't prefer to do things by themselves and use digital channels. They would prefer to have a premium service, and this would need a human touch. So we're trying as much as possible to design something that will not go far away from the way they prefer to do the service, And we're trying to change ourselves instead of trying to change the people. And we're trying to curate something for them based on their needs, not based on our expectation and how to make things just easier for us. We're trying to get a win-win formula, and this is the whole philosophy of Shark. I hope I answered your question, Salman.
Great. So I see Adi raising his hand. Please, Adi.
Sure. Hi, Hassan. First, maybe an observation and then a question. Observation. Anyone in the US that's applying for a passport now would very much welcome your approach. So I don't know if you're in a position to advise our State Department, but I think they're very much in need for the approach that you described. The question, and I actually want to follow up on the dialogue you had with Arila. You mentioned the work you're currently doing in prototyping and then kind of moving to the next phase of scaling. And what we see across organizations is one of the primary challenges of innovation is the scaling. It's not the ideation, it's not the initial prototyping that creates a lot of excitement, but actually deploying it at scale and creating the impact. So I'm curious to hear from you, what are perhaps some of the challenges you see in scaling within a government context and how you approach that? I think those insights will be extremely valuable, not only for government entities, but also commercial entities as well for the private sector.
Sure. See, I guess, I mean, the main principle of service design is basically to focus so much on the empathy aspect of it. And this will help you a lot with the scaling up. Unfortunately, we tend not to empathize so much with our stakeholders in general. And empathy with the stakeholders is very important. So if you're designing a product, it's very important for you to do a similar exercise like any successful app that exists today, any successful system that exists today. They update on regular basis based on the feedback they have from the customers and based on the feedback they have from their partners. So we're dealing with various entities. I mean, we're dealing with 40 public entities. And I'm not sharing with you today an experience that had been done and we're successful and it's not we're not just dancing the right now because we've achieved something great, but as I mentioned, this project that we're going through now, it's been there for 6 months. I'm sharing more of the successes than the challenges that we have. So the success was, yes, we were able now to onboard 12 entities to one channel. We were able to onboard 10 entities to another channel. We're successful in integrating with multiple channels, which include the call center, which includes, as I mentioned, the service centers. So there had been successes, but definitely there are multiple challenges. And as you mentioned, to scale. In order for you to scale, you would need to curate and develop and further enhance and make sure that your product is adjustable and it can fit multiple users. So the more time you spend on planning and the more time you spend on understanding who you're designing your product for and who you're designing your services for, the more likely you will succeed in delivering a product that is able to grow beyond what you designed it initially for. Honestly, we're pretty much surprised with the adoption rate that we have right now in the service center. We are surprised with the adoption rate that we have with some of our partners. It exceeded our expectation. But definitely there are legacy systems that multiple entities are using, and they're saying, okay, I already invested in this technology. Why would I divest? And how can I justify to my decision makers that I'm leaving behind a system that I already developed and invested in, and I spent so many years developing? And so these are the questions that we're answering, but you don't have a single answer for all the questions you have. So the thing that we start with doing is we try to understand as much as possible, we empathize with these customers, and then we either replace or we integrate. So we tell them we understand. So this product will not replace the product that you have. We can integrate with the systems that you have. And we will provide you with a layer to help you better understand your customers and to help your make decisions faster. And this is what we're doing. I mean, we're not pushing the solution that we have or the platform that we have in people's throat and forcing them to use the solution, but we're trying to amend the design of the solution with each entity that we're working with. And this is how we're scaling our prototypes.
Yeah. Thank you. We'll be looking forward to continue to hear about your success. Arila, back to you.
Thank you, Adi. Okay, I love this because we were in UK, now in US, and now moving to Jakarta. So Asia. So Cristanto, please, if you can mention the affiliation, the country you are calling in, and the question.
From
We
Business
don't-
Innovation
We don't
Center.
hear you.
Sorry, cannot hear you.
Now,
Hello?
now, yes.
Hello, can I hear? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, Cristanto from Business Innovation Center, Jakarta. Hassan, thank you for sharing. It's amazing. And also, Happy New Year to you.
Thank you very
First,
much.
thank you for sharing your experience in your new year. But I have two questions actually. It's amazing to see that you can manage to change your government orientation and mindset. The question is then how? I heard several times you said about reward, right? Rewarding people, and also rework your business processes. But I still wonder whether that is your main key thing to move such a big organization as a government to embrace into a government customer focus orientation and things like that. Second question is regarding resistance to change in our government experience when we talk about how to become customer oriented, removing your silos, then the excuse always has been that we cannot do that because the way the budget of the government is allocated. If we go out of the silo, nobody responsible with who is going to pay for that kind of thing, you see? So it's you cannot mix budget of ministries and departments, so that becomes an excuse for not collaborating between ministries. Your comment, please. Thank you.
Sure. So how can you deal with resistance, especially when you're trying to bring about the change that you need to bring about? I mean, the way we've designed our government services strategy before we started working on a solution is we made it a more collaborative approach on planning. You need to collaborate on planning before you start collaborating on implementing a solution or scaling up and so on. So when we worked on the government services strategy, we've put together a task force from multiple entities. And as I mentioned, again, empathy is the keyword. You would need to understand your segments and you would need to understand your stakeholders better. And because of the exercise that we've done through our government services strategy, and again, this exercise is not another mushroom. It's not something that pops out of nowhere. We have a clear national vision, the Qatar National Vision 2030, and it has main directions and multiple elements, one of which is public administration and the necessity of modernizing public administration and public services. So there is a direction from the leadership of the state of Qatar. And based on that, we've designed our government services strategy, which is also very aligned with the national development strategy, which is one of the subsets of the national vision of the state of Qatar. So once we designed that service strategy, we engaged with entities when it comes to the implementation labs as well. So we made sure that we're engaging with them when it comes to designing the solutions and designing the answers for the questions. So the question of where we are today, where do we want to be, the North Star that we already discussed. And if you noticed, we don't have 200 KPIs and 120 initiatives, because once you have 200 KPIs and 120 initiatives, your strategy will fail. If you want it to be agile and if you want it to move very fast, you need to simplify your KPIs as much as possible and simplify what you're trying to achieve as much as possible, and then to align everyone around very basic KPIs that everyone agrees on. And these KPIs are designed based on the pain points and the empathy that we've discussed. and we talked about it. And then we started the implementation. And even with having a collaborative approach in planning, it's also very challenging to still convince people about providing a solution for a problem that they've defined and a challenge that they have because of the legacy, because of the comfort zone. Change is not an easy exercise. However, if you're not good enough in raising urgency, and that is the first step, it's impossible to bring about the change that you need to bring about. And honestly, I mean, the main thing that you need to think about today and deliver as a message, and this is what we've delivered, decision makers can no longer have the luxury of being late in making decisions. They need to make decisions every day when it comes to the citizens and customer experience. They need to adjust, they need to enhance, and they need to be agile, because that will impact the satisfaction of the citizen. It will impact your ability to attract more foreign direct investment into your economy. It will impact the lives of millions and millions of people that depend on the services that you provide. So you can no longer use legacy systems and use older ways of doing things and expect different results and expect for yourself to be competitive in a very competitive world. So that is the key principle that we've used in order for us to help stakeholders understand the scale of such a project and the vision of such a project. And you need to be a good salesman. You need to keep selling them a beautiful dream that they believe in. If you're not a good salesman, you won't be able to bring about the change that you want to deliver.
That's great. Thank you, Hassan. Great point also about empathy. I think it applies in every sense and field of life. I see Carlos next in the line. Thank you, Carlos. Carlos is representing Sia Partners, and together with Jimmy, we did the exercise about the hackathon and service mapping. So Carlos, please ask your question, and if you can comment as well on what Sia Partners is been doing, in particular in GCC countries and now in Qatar.
Yeah, thank you, Arila. Hi, Hassan. How are you?
Hi, Carlos. Good. How are you?
Congratulations. Very good presentation. I think we haven't had the pleasure to meet personally, but I'm fully aware of the great work that you guys are doing.
Thank you very much.
I just wanted to go back maybe to the point that Arila mentioned at the beginning, the difficulties of aligning different entities under one journey. And to make it very practical and clear for the audience, the challenges we see over and over is that entities, they have their own journey, and their journey starts from the same point: request papers, right? But the papers that this entity requests are the same papers that the next entity requests, and are the same papers that the next entity requests. And from a customer perspective, whether it's a citizen or an investor, you go from entity 1, 2, and 3, and they keep asking for the same things. It's annoying. It's a waste of time, waste of paper, etc. Right? And I understand you guys have somehow, you're working on smoothing this, streamlining this, and I understand also from you that you do this in an iterative approach. It's not one single plan and then halas is done, right? You go smooth step by step. But I guess I'm really curious to if you can elaborate on the governance that you put behind this, because you guys are on the top, setting the guidelines, the vision, setting the standards, and then each entity have to use their own resources to work towards those changes that are required, and this probably requires more than one meeting, right? So the hackathon, for example, is a good start, but then do you have, like, for example, a customer journey owner who sets and checks that all the different stakeholders in this particular customer journey meet regularly, review regularly, do their changes regularly, etc. How can you elaborate a bit more on this, continuous governance, how you iterate successfully to achieve your vision?
Sure. Thank you, Carlos, for the great question, and hopefully I'm looking forward to meeting you very soon and work with you very soon, hopefully. See, you've tackled a very important point, which is the governance point. Again, how much of what we do is centralized versus decentralized, and how much of what we do when it comes to service design is being done by CGP versus other entities. In a maturity stage where you have a clear vision and you have clear standards, you would decentralize as much as possible. So it's a situation it's a situational leadership kind of approach. So some of the entities will need closer work. So you would need to hold their hands, walk them through the baby steps and tell them this is how things are being done. This is how you're redesigning and re-engineering your journey, and make sure that they have clear framework on how to deal with various entities. And sometimes, I mean, we've been engaged to the level of, we've worked with entities on redesigning a journey. We've made sure that all the stakeholders meet around the table. We made sure that they also made or engaged in a public consultation exercise where they started engaging their users, the multiple users and multiple segments. And we worked with these entities to redesign the full journey. But ideally, and as I mentioned, and our role as a civil service bureau is to set the standards, to be an accelerator of accelerators. We should not be an innovation accelerator and do everything ourselves, because if we work with the 21 journeys that I've explained to you, and with the limited resources that any entity and any public entity have or has, it's impossible to deliver the quality of service and commitments that I've shared with you, the 5 commitments that I shared with you, and the North Star that we're aspiring to achieve. So you try as much as possible to set standards, to put together a monitoring mechanisms, to make sure that you're providing a tool like Sharik to help monitor, assess, and have better informed recommendations on regular basis. And then it's easy to understand your customer better and design or redesign a journey based on their needs and based on the challenges that they're facing. But again, there isn't a single answer for each journey. Each journey would be different because it has different stakeholders with different maturity stage. Some of the entities, they've been doing that for the last 2-3 decades. Some of the entities were established a year ago or 2 years ago, and they have a new mandate, and they need to answer to millions of people that need their services. So it depends. It's pretty much, it's not a monolithic approach of how to redesign a service and how to redesign a journey, but it's mainly to have specific standards and then to have an agile approach of also governing the overall framework, which I've explained to you.
All right. Thank you, Hassan.
Thank you, Carlos.
Great, thank you. I would like to end the questions with 2. One is about AI from Enrique, and then I would like to end with Ron. He has to share some insights and I believe few questions.
Thank you, Rila. Hey, Hassan, this is Enrique Mesone from Lima, Peru. Great to meet you. I'm right now the president of the Peruvian Association of Technology, Software, and Digital Economy. We're currently working among, Latin America with policymakers, to improve or, how digitalization, has evolved from a disruptive wave affecting specific industries to become a fundamental driving force of economic growth around the globe that we can see everywhere, So by embracing the properties of the digital economy or digital technology, for example, such as data availability, enhanced computer power, improvements in network connectivity, or reduced transaction costs, digital markets ranging from smartphone applications to different forms of digital products and services have consolidated in today's business scenario, and consequently, digital platform, for example, the big five, the tech giants such as Alphabet, Google, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft are nowadays among the most successful organizations at the global scale. My question is, in this fast pace of technology, as demand for information here and now has reached, real-time services, innovation, marketing, technology, companies, governments, and institutions face challenges reaching consumers, person, and the tourists, people of interest who will require face-time interaction. My thinking is, in creating this Sharik, like a platform or other platforms, are you also including the delivery of real-time communications, such as we are having this conversation now with people from all over the world, but that can include AI biometrics, so we can validate who you are as a citizen, or exchanging of legal documents, so we can use even digital signature or electronic signature, or blockchain voting system that can allow to vote people from everywhere using a cell phone or computer. So the idea is how we can bring these, real-time services with security, trust, and traceability. Are these real-time services in face-to-face, including all these, validation, digital signature, is something that you are, right now creating or delivering in your platform?
So the platform does not go to that level of providing services right now. As I mentioned, it's a customer experience platform. So it basically helps you to better understand and better design. But providing services is usually being done through other platforms and other systems within the government itself. What we're trying to do through Sharik, we're trying to integrate with as many platforms as possible to better understand the customers they're dealing with. And as you mentioned, that will help them with making better real-time decisions based on real-time experience. Because what matters, honestly, more than just designing a platform, more than just having great service using the latest technologies and all of that, is to have real-time decision-making as well, which will help you deliver a better service. But again, I mean, the example of Sharik works out perfectly in an environment in Qatar where it's pretty much in comparison to Peru, in comparison to other countries, it's the size is a bit different, and it's easier to deliver such a project for such a government. And again, the focus, as I mentioned, is on customer experience rather than delivering a service. But we're enabling these entities to deliver the service through the technologies which you've mentioned as well.
Thank you.
Great. I'd leave the last question before we wrap up to Ron. I think he had the question and wanted to make some insights as well. Ron, you have to unmute yourself.
Okay. So great presentation, Hassan. Thank you very
Ron, sorry, can you unmute yourself once again?
I did. All right,
okay.
I'll try again. Thank you for a great presentation and insights on how to really create accelerator results, how to focus on empathy in terms of getting people engaged in the process. I guess my question is, I was just trying to connect a number of the dots. You've got, you talked about accelerator of accelerators. You talked about the innovation labs. You talked about the importance of creating empathy and building collaboration across silos. And I'm just wondering, have your labs, have you been able yet, or have you built kind of simulators and digital twins so that people who didn't attend the hackathon, I can see that people who actually attended the hackathon may be very engaged and excited about collaborating on this, but there's hundreds or thousands of people who didn't attend the hackathon, whether they're decision makers or service deliverers or customers.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious, how do you engage them?
Sure.
Is there some kind of a simulator where people can really understand what it feels like to do something, where they can both deal with pain as well as pleasure, and super pleasing as well as super denying? Where have you gone with the lab so far?
Sure, sure. So we're not at that stage yet, Ron. So most of our innovation labs and service design labs had been in a controlled environment, and it's within the parameters of what we have an access to right now. And we've focused on, first of all, as I mentioned, we're testing it, and we've been working on a smaller scale. But definitely we're in the process right now on putting together the team, going with a larger way of tackling innovation to engage a larger number of people, as you mentioned, and larger number of civil servants. We'll start with the innovation framework. We'll start with establishing a great way of building an accelerator of accelerators. And then we'll start with hopefully promoting innovation in public entities, because we need specialized accelerators that will deal with specialized needs of our citizens and residents and visitors as well. Because if we start taking this as a responsibility and centralize innovation, it's against the whole philosophy of innovation. While you start innovating about something that you don't know, so you'll start designing something that does not work out for the end customer. But if we become an enabler of innovation in the public sector, I guess we will be more productive and more effective.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Arila.
Great. Thank you, Ron. To wrap this session up, I think we had many compliments in the chat that we couldn't address all, and a few questions because we ran out of time. This was an interesting discussion, and apparently we had many questions, but please feel free to write to us and we'll address this with Hassan afterwards. Hassan, my last question to end this conversation is, what are your future plans? You did definitely the service mapping and the hackathon, which was a great exercise, in my opinion, not only to enhance the problem solving culture, innovation and creativity culture, you know, among the employees, but I feel they felt the need, we saw that, right, of collaborating to each other, or we can collaborate with other ministries, or we can think about the solutions. We are allowed to make changes. Nothing is set on stone, and we are allowed, the processes have flows, and we are allowed to think about a breakthrough idea, and our opinions basically, or our ideas are taken into consideration. So I think these were main insights, at least that I got from the hackathon. But saying that, what are your mechanisms or future plans beside the hackathon to make this sustainable, the innovation culture, the problem-solving culture, and to recognize, you know, the efforts of the employees who are giving innovative ideas, you know, or are allowed to think creatively?
Sure. See, the beauty about starting something new, it's always exciting. So we were very excited that we're doing a hackathon. We're very excited that we're bringing about the innovation aspect to the government. It is something that had not been done before when it comes to service design. I would summarize our future plans with a single word, which I like and I tend to use a lot, which is consistency. We need to be consistent. If we're not consistent with the way we're doing things, we'll end up failing miserably. So we need to be consistent. We need to make sure that whatever we started is something that we're able to deliver on. We need to make sure that a platform like Sharak realizes all the benefits it's been promising to people and to entities. And the same thing applies to the hackathon. The hackathon is a start, as you mentioned, but we need to make sure that we bring about the innovation culture that we are promising the public entities. So yes, we started with the governance aspect. We need now to work on the innovation framework which I mentioned. It's not a framework that we should design ourselves, but we should design it collaboratively with all the public entities that will be involved in this process. We need to make sure that this framework is being put into an operational level as well, and it's being implemented and used. And as you mentioned, we need to work on the accelerator of accelerators that will help enable people to deliver innovation in a better approach. And then one last thing that also will help nurture the innovation culture in the government is the government excellence program that we've put together. So the government excellence program that we've put together assesses entities based on how they're dealing with innovation and how open they are to new ideas from their various stakeholders. So the government excellence framework will help us to always assess, monitor, and hopefully reward the entities that are working very aligned in a more aligned approach with our mindset and the way we want to bring innovation to the government.
And Hassan, what's your key last takeaway or learning from all this experience? We have here leaders from, I believe, Perth municipality, we had from London, as you saw, and other countries who maybe are working to establish the same thing, one-stop shop system, basically, or a platform which integrates all services. So what do you believe is the key takeaway out of this discussion?
So the key takeaway, I used the word consistency already, so I cannot use the word consistency again. But I would advise anyone who wants to better serve their citizens and residents and visitors to be more human-centric and more citizen-centric. Yes, while we're limited by our challenges and constraints and resources, which had been mentioned by one of the attendees and said, oh, we have issues with budgets, we have issues with limited resources. Yes, while these are limitations that exist today, you should not forget that you are there because you need to better serve your citizens and residents and visitors. So wake up every day in the morning focusing on how you provide a better service to your citizens. And then Sharik might not be the answer for every problem in every entity around the world. I mean, the platform that we've developed is not the answer, but this is the answer to a question that we've raised. So find your question and try to come up with an answer on how to better serve your citizens and residents and visitors. So this is my takeaway. I mean, Sharik is not a solution. Sharik is a solution for us, but not to everyone.
We really believe and we hope this partnership will continue with GIMI and Sia Partners, and great things are coming. I think we promised you to have a treat out of this discussion. I believe we had a treat today with Hassan, a great, inspiring talk, Hassan. And out of this discussion, we will develop an insight report that we will be disseminating and distributing to all of you, all the audience of GIMI. And you will find Hassan's speech in our library of speakers at GIMI. Thank you very much. Good to see you in the next webinar next week.
Thank you very much for having me. Take care.